Welcome to Where Parents Talk. My name is Lianne Castelino. Our guest today is an entrepreneur, a TEDx speaker, and a coach. John Bromley is CEO of Charitable Impact, a web-based platform designed to reimagine giving. Charitable Impact is also the first exclusively online donor-advised fund in Canada. John is also a father of two, and he joins us today from Vancouver. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
Really interesting topic when we talk about charitable giving and generosity, and certainly through a parenting lens. Let me start with asking you, John, why is giving so important to you personally?
Giving is important to me because I think it feels like it gives me really a lot of purpose and meaning when I do it. Now, when I'm participating, I'm giving. I'm not thinking about the purpose or the meaning, I don't think. But when I reflect back on places where I give of my time or my talent or my money, my treasure, I do kind of look back and I go, huh, like that was something I'm glad I did. For example, in the leadoff, you said something about a coach. So I coach soccer and I played a lot of sports growing up. And I find it really meaningful to connect with these young kids that I'm coaching. And I find it meaningful to me. I think it's meaningful to them, and that makes me feel good, but I find it meaningful to me. And then I watch them grow, and then I find meaning in that. And the other thing is, I was reflecting on how whether it makes me a better public speaker or something, because if you could talk to kids and get them to pay attention to you, you're doing something right.
Absolutely. Now, take us through, if you could, John, building on that point a little bit, any research that you've come across over the time that you've been doing this that you can share that really illustrates the impact of philanthropy on the person giving, the donor themselves.
Well, there's more and more research going into this topic, actually, and you find it across sort of lay all the way through academic types of research, and it ranges from the psychological all the way through to the biological. So in the biological, you'll find studies on how giving impacts our serotonin and really impacts how we feel literally biologically, right? So when we give, it's not just this mind impact that goes, oh wow, I think that was a nice thing to do. I think I should feel good. You literally feel it physically, and over time, that's being proven to have more and more impact on people. Now that goes all the way through to also the mindset side of things, where you have um, studies that come out and show people that practice gratitude purposefully, uh, you know, help themselves, right? And lastly, some of the stuff I'm getting really interested in these days is where we're talking to older people who are looking back on their life and and talking around things that they wish they had done more and or things they did that they definitely didn't regret doing. And what we're finding in these studies is that um, giving is something people did not regret doing, and giving is something that they actually wish they had done a little bit more of.
Now, you believe that each of us is innately generous. Take us through what you mean and why do you believe that?
Well, I believe it because both sort of on reflection of how I've experienced my own life and the life of people around me, and also just from reading history and behavioral economics and psychological stuff. I take great interest in that. So 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 when we reflect on, start with the second one, is when you reflect on society, we're a very social uh being, right? We're social animals, and the when you're that social, you don't survive without helping other people and being helped yourself. So this concept of it takes a village, I think, illustrates to us that um, giving to one another and receiving the gifts of others uh, really helps humanity move forward. And I don't see any evidence and I'm no historian now, okay, but I don't see any evidence in what I've ever read where there was a period of time where, people didn't give to each other, and then they, in society, and then it shifted, and everything was, oh phew, like things are getting a lot better now. And on the personal side, like, from my perspective, I remember giving being modeled for me. I remember my parents sort of telling me some things about giving. I remember, experiencing it myself at different levels, but I don't remember ever having to really learn the notion of doing for something for someone else. And back to research, I didn't speak to this, but there's really interesting research around children with regard to giving. And you go down and you study kids at a young age, and they choose giving over benefiting themselves in a lot of cases. Oftentimes, this notion of altruism, which I don't believe we are innately altruistic, I believe we're innately generous. You get closer to altruism with these kids who are super, super young and almost don't know the social norms of take care of yourself, maybe before you take care of others. So yeah, I do believe that generosity is innate, and I think that it's something that needs to be nurtured rather than birthed, if you will.
Now that's interesting. When you talk about nurturing generosity in a child, what does that look like? What age ideally should we be looking at? What should we be role modeling? Because you could make a very strong argument for the fact that, we live in a world where there's lots going on, and perhaps people don't have the means, the time, the energy, the resources to be as generous as they want to be, as they could be. So how do we nurture it in children?
Well, an analogy that I like to use, although it's a bit biased towards my upbringing, is like with athleticism. I think athleticism for some is like, some have more than others, but this idea of being able to like function with your body and move it in certain ways and develop it to do things is this innate capability. And so, when you talk about, nurturing athleticism, you don't really hear people on the one hand say, well, you should take your 2-year-old to the park and throw balls at them, and until they can catch it, but you also don't really find people kind of being like, well, I'm going to sort of really just let my kid, not go outside and not, when they attract themselves to balls, not sort of, encourage them along that. And so I think where I'm going with that idea is that, like, if generosity is innate the way I believe it is, it's a part of who we are, and therefore it's a part of everything that we do. And so the question starts to become, how do you get people to recognize what that is and how it helps develop themselves, let alone the fact that oftentimes generosity is meant just to help other people, right? We forget about ourselves in generosity a lot. So I think the way you do it is you go back to the fundamentals of learning, and you kind of go, look, if I'm not going to model, like as an adult or as a parent, if I'm not going to model generosity to the youth, they're not going to be able to recognize it as much because they've never really seen it before. If I'm not going to point it out to them when they do something generous, or when they could have done something generous and they didn't, right? Sharing when you're young, and what's this concept of sharing? I mean, ultimately, sharing is based on, this gray area of what do I do for myself versus what do I give to others, when and why, right? And it's not always because someone's overtly hungry and therefore I'm going to share with them. Sometimes it's just, I want you to be part of what I'm experiencing right now. So when you get to the second part of your question, it's a really important topic. And I think this is one of the areas where giving and charitable giving in particular needs to be examined. So first of all, it's important to recognize that, time and talent and treasure, your money is scarce, right? I mean, so how and when do you choose to use it to allocate to others? that's an important and can get to a complicated question. There's no science around this. Where I like to go with the discussion, without going on at great length, is into, recognizing how giving of your time and talent and even money is something that can happen all throughout life when you're in different things going on. I mean, you can be in the lineup, at the store and, do something for someone behind you. You can, that's not sort of charitable at law per se, but like, there's time, you can be at work and give some of your time to help a colleague out. So the giving and generosity stuff is something that's really a part of everything we do. And I think it's actually oftentimes harder to almost not be generous than it is to be generous. The other hard part is is to recognize when you're being generous and to call yourself out and to let yourself kind of recognize that you've done something there to help someone. You don't have to brag about it, but it's just to kind of go, hey, you know what? I spent an extra 20 minutes there helping my colleague out at work, and I'm pretty sure that had a pretty significant impact on them. Wonder if my boss noticed. Maybe that's going to come back and help me later.
It's an important point that you're making, John, because I think it's even more emphasized when you're dealing with kids, right? So you've got the role modeling piece, and let's say they start to practice and follow what you're modeling for them, but having the opportunity to then, as a parent, stop and let them realize what they've done has got to be really important for that child.
I think so. I think that's really critical. I mean, you do that in sport, right? You'd say, hey, that was a really good thing you just did, and here's why I think it was good, right? And you'd also do that on a constructive criticism component. Here's what you just did and why it was maybe wrong, or whatever language you use, and here's why I think that. And that's critical to do with giving. And I mean, lots of parents do that with generosity. I think there's a lot of good nurturing of generosity in by parents, and it's done quite naturally. I mean, no one teaches you how to teach someone to be generous. I think people just know within reason, like what's right and what's wrong, and what's sort of good and what's bad. Um, I actually don't worry so much about generosity and it being nurtured or taught. What I do worry about, however, is the translation of generosity into community giving back, into charitable more types of giving. And that's the area where, in particular, I think there's work to be done to help people teach that more formalized type of giving.
Could you give us an example of what you're talking about?
Yeah, sure. So, um, you have people over and someone doesn't have a plate of food. You kind of go generously walk to the table and maybe bring them some food, or there's some really grandma and grandpa around, they can't get out of their chair as easily. You go and you serve them. Some people call that politeness. Some people would call that generosity. Either way, I think it's a good thing to do. Um, but what about recognizing, so that's in this closed environment where you can recognize and you have social relationships, and there's maybe even hierarchical notions of politeness that sort of suggest, oh, you should do that. What about the old person in who lives down the block, who or who's in your community, whether you know them or not, who's food insecure, right? Who doesn't have the food to get, that doesn't ever have someone visiting them. So how do you sort of take this idea of what you do for grandma and grandpa to this level of, there's probably other grandparents in around town, and does that interest me, first of all? And secondly, if it does, how do I start to purposefully schedule some time and maybe some money to allocate towards helping that problem? And so I think a lot of the problem with teaching charitable giving is actually not knowing what's sort of charitable and what's not, right? And so you have this idea of generosity that translates quite easily and smoothly in society, but when it gets to formalized giving, you don't see it as much. And when I talk to people about it, they go, "Oh, I didn't know I could do that," or "I didn't know there were charities that focused on that," or "I didn't know." there are ways for me to jump into something that already exists to contribute some of my time or talent or money towards that. And I think that's where the education needs to be. It's a form of recognition, helping people recognize rather than helping people do.
Absolutely. And a lot of what you just described is really the reason I'm assuming behind your creation of Charitable Impact as an organization to help people, better understand organizations that they can give to. You went from a career in corporate finance to founding Charitable Impact. What was the catalyst for that change?
Well, life, as you get older, I'm 46 now. Life is just sort of happens, right? And you look back and you go, gee, like, what was the catalyst? And looking backwards, you kind of go, wow, I could probably describe this in 100 different ways. There were two catalysts that I think I recognized at the time. The first was I was not, I had a great job. I was very privileged to be in that role. I was well paid. I was learning tons, but it wasn't a culture fit for me. And it took me some time to have the courage actually to recognize that that was true and that I had the agency to do something about it. And part of the courage was recognizing it and then doing something about it. I mean, back to charitable giving, right? The thing I did about it was I actually left my job for the first time in my professional career. I left a job without having another job to go to. That took some courage for me to do, but it was the culture fit piece that wasn't there. The other catalyst that got into starting Charitable Impact is those two things didn't happen at the same time. Although without the first happening, the second wouldn't have happened. Is I started by happenstance working with my father, who was one of the pioneers of charity law at the time, one of the top charity lawyers. He's retired now, but one of the top charity lawyers in the country. And there, I just learned an incredible amount about the charity sector, particularly on how to facilitate charity to happen legally, all the way through behavioral, economically, and 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 through that, I learned what I sort of needed to learn in order to get to the place where I believe you would have to be in order to start something like Charitable Impact.
There must have been something so much deeper, though, John, right, to make that courageous move to leave your employment, leave, a safe income and go off on your own into something that, just the wild unknown, I guess. So when you started to kind of think about the structure of Charitable Impact, what would you say is the gap that your organization fills?
The gap is that no one serves the donor. Almost everything in all the professional services that target the charity sector, this big, actually very big, broad sector, is focused on the charity itself and enabling and running the charitable activity itself. And so what I was able to recognize after many years of working with my dad and learning a ton about charity in general, including all the structures that enable and facilitate things to happen, etc., was that there was no one really there to serve the donor. And so the donors were interfacing with this big, broad charitable space through this mechanism that we call fundraising, this sort of sales and marketing arm of the sector. And I'm pro fundraising, I'm pro sales and marketing. It's needed in all forms of business, including charitable business. But, it's not like it's not like the bank, like a bank, like if you have a bank account, it's not like the sole purpose is like them selling to you to be like, hey, you should really put money here and spend money here right now, right? A lot of what you learn, especially if you learn sort of financial literacy, and if you learn about, things coming from yourself intrinsically out, you learn about the reason why it's important to have a bank account, the reason why, maybe it's important to learn about a mortgage so you can buy a house, or insurance so that you can protect yourself against things like that. And it's not just a big sales job. And so in the charitable giving world, what I recognized was that the vast majority of donors were interacting with the charity sector based on this sort of sales mechanic, instead of starting with themselves and who they are, and what they love and why they love that, and therefore what role giving might play in this stuff that they love, that they have reasons to love. And then to say, well, here's how you can build a pathway, for yourself to do that. So that the gap Charitable Impact fills is creating an organization. We created an organization whose purpose was to work for and serve the donor, regardless of what causes they cared about or how much money they had to give away.
So take us through, if you could, some of the logistics in a very simple way, like illustrate what that looks like in terms of the platform, and also what is a donor advised fund for people who may not be aware.
If you don't know what a donor advised fund is, you are in the majority. So don't worry about that. A donor advised fund is analogous to having your own bank account, but just for charitable giving. So if you think about what a bank account is, it's this safe, secure space that's just for you, where you can load and all the money that is given to you or that you earn yourself. Right. So when someone earns money, instead of being like, oh, what am I going to do with it? You just go, oh, I'm going to put it in my bank account. It's safe and secure there. And then you can hold the money there. And why is it important to be able to hold the money? Because then you can think about, right? You can take some time, you can take some free space to think about how you're actually going to use that. Oh, I got to pay these bills. Oh, I want to save some money for my kids who might go to university later in life. Oh, I want to invest some money for my own retirement. Oh, maybe I want to give some money away. So the holding mechanism, and then from there, you can spend it on anything you want. And so a donor advised fund is exactly like that, except it's just built for charitable giving. So the difference is when you put the money in, you get a tax receipt right away. You've already donated the money. It's not yours anymore, but you can hold it now in this donor advised fund, this fund that you as the donor are advising, hence the donor advised fund. And when you're ready, you can say, hey, send it to this charity or send it to that charity. Or in a place like Charitable Impact, send it to this other account where I'm going to send it to my kid for them as a charitable allowance to choose what to do with the money instead. Right. So this is the context in which I would say the system is built to serve the donor, because we give you this safe place where you can just donate the money and in so doing become part of the people in society who choose to give back, especially using their money. Oh, I'm going to get $50 away. I'm not quite sure where I'm going to give it yet, but I'm going to give $50 away. So I'm going to set up a recurring donation into my donor advised fund for $50 a month. And now I'm a donor. Now that $50 a month is going in, and let's say it's month 3 and you've got $150 in there, you're going, maybe my friend, just talked to me about this thing they're doing. Maybe grandma, didn't go so well in the hospital, and she's got to stay in a little longer. But boy, am I grateful! She's got great people looking after her. Oh, well, hospital's a charity. I want to give them some money. Send them $75. You still have $75 to do something else with, right? And so, in the context in which you work for the donors, we give them the facilities, we give them the tools to have the time and space and freedom they need to become the charitable person they want to become. And then we wrap that with support, because we've got people at Charitable Impact who love charity and love to talk to people. And instead of selling them on a charity that they should give to, their job really is to more listen to you and to try pull out for you the types of things that you can do. And so it's a tool and it's support focused on the donor so that the donor can help the charities that they want to help.
It certainly sounds like a very simplified process that you've put together and the platform that goes with it. So how would you say then that Charitable Impact helps facilitate, nurture, and perhaps even sustain a culture of giving within a family?
Well, specifically within a family, I mean, my answer would be the same no matter what context you gave, but the family maybe gives some context, to share specifics. So, the parent, the parent or the parents can come along and say, hey, we're gonna purposefully choose to share our value of giving back to society with our children. And so we're the ones with the money, right? Even if you don't have a lot, the parents are still the ones with the money. We're gonna start giving ourselves, and we're gonna start talking to our kids about that, right? And talking to your kids about it. Back to this recognition piece. When kids come home from school and they go, oh, hey, honey, what did you learn? And they say, oh, I learned about about this. You can kind of go, whatever the topic is. You can go, hey, did you, was that meaningful to you? Oh yeah, if they get excited, do you know that there's things outside of school where that actually goes on in real life, and we can connect you to that. Are you interested in that? Should we try? Should we just even look at it? And if you're not interested later, we can pull back and look at something else, right? So taking these things that they learn, if it's about poverty relief, or if it's about education, or if it's about, religion, or if it's about the environment, or if it's about health, all of these things connect into charities in places like in North America and Europe, most places around the world. So first and foremost, I think it's about nurturing your kids to know that when they're interested in the topic, they can do something about it. We do that in sport. We do that with academics. We don't do that so much with this notion of giving back. So that's the first thing. And then just to get a bit more specific, and I could go on at great length on this topic. One of the things that I do with my children is my wife and I set money aside for giving ourselves. And then we take a small chunk of that and we give it to our kids for them to give it away in the form of what we refer to as a charitable allowance. So each of my kids get $10 a month, get sent from my account to their account at Charitable Impact, and they have to decide what to do with it. And I've got two kids, and like everyone with kids, you're kind of always shocked about how different your two kids are, or your five kids, and how everyone's so different, even though they came from the same place. And I've got one kid who's saving up the money. He wants to get to a big number, like $500, so that he can do one or two large gifts or something that's really meaningful to him. And when you say, well, son, what's meaningful to you? He has ideas, but he doesn't know yet what he wants to do. And that's perfectly fine. You want to nurture that as a parent, as long as they keep thinking about it and take some action at some point. My other son, money comes in. He goes, I know what I want to do. Pretty sure I know what I want to do. It's this, and I'm going to do it right now. And then, what we choose to do is let him do that. And then after he's done it, kind of go, hey, like, how did you feel about that? Are you going to do the same thing next month, you think? Anyway, you've got some time to think about it. That was really cool. Hope you feel good about it. Is there anything you regret about that? Well, there is. Let's talk about that. Oh, there's not. Way to go. Let's talk about that. So what I think is important giving in a family setting, and that a donor advised fund like Charitable Impact enables, okay, pardon the plug, but you need the tool to be able to do it, is it enables a parent to shift from just modeling and talking about generosity to saying, here's something for you, and you're going to have to do it yourself. We do that. Lots of parents choose to give their kids an allowance to teach financial literacy, pardon the highfalutin terms. In the future, I want to see parents choosing to give their children charitable allowances to start developing charitable literacy.
Lots of interesting food for thought, certainly for parents and families to consider. John Bromley, CEO of Charitable Impact, really appreciate your time and your perspective today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on. Great questions.